More than 6 million Californians are food insecure. Today, St. Vincent Meals on Wheels serves more than 1.1 million meals a year. Without St. Vincent Meals on Wheels, thousands would be completely isolated and go hungry. Food insecurity is an issue, but it is one that we can overcome together.
So good evening. My name is Kevin Mark Lodie, and on the behalf of the St. Vincent Meals on Wheels Foundation and our sponsor tonight, the gas company, welcome to Hungry. The topic for tonight's conversation is currency, the social impact of dollars versus deeds. Okay, so really my role in this is to get the ball rolling and keep it in play, but I'm realizing with this group, they may take the ball away from me and run with it themselves because they have vast expertise within each of them and a lot to share between each other. So to get it kicked off, I'd like to begin with Haylen. Haylen was originally at Summit Entertainment before it was acquired by Lionsgate. She's presently the Executive Vice President of Human Resources at Lionsgate. But you actually began and initiated the corporate social responsibility effort when you were at Summit.
Yes. So I started at Summit in 2007. The company had recently been given $1 billion worth of funding to start the studio. So once I was there, I think I was employee number 52, and that's when they start getting an HR person involved. And we, I looked around, and we did not have any kind of program in place of volunteerism. And I've always volunteered in my life, and the first thing that I asked is, we need to get something off ground. And we started very small, walking over to the food bank during our lunch hour, and then we ended up putting something formal in place, where we would have meetings once a month, and we would have individuals come by and say, this is what I'd like to present. And the employee would be involved in the whole process, where if I'm bringing this to this event for you to bring for this month, then you have to do the coordination, get the volunteers from the company, and then be there to facilitate it. So it gave them a little bit of an impact themselves as to how they were involved.
And how did you approach that? Did you just walk over to Rob Friedman's office and say, I have this idea of doing this?
Exactly.
Pretty much. Okay.
And he sits on the board of Special Olympics, so he's been involved with philanthropy most of his career, and so it wasn't a hard sell.
Mm-hmm. You too, Sarah, are from an organization that's the result of a merge, and were also at one of those organizations prior to the merge. So was there a pre-existing culture of citizenship or philanthropy at Endeavor or both organizations?
There were. That both organizations had their own foundations. When we merged, and I think what happened at both is they got kind of stuck in their ways. They had found the status quo and they stuck with it. And so when we merged, for one thing, there was an opportunity to shift the culture, because I think with a merger you have a lot of fear and a lot of folks who are very uncomfortable and instead of doing their job the best that they can, they're panicking. and so philanthropy there was that opportunity to use the foundation and use philanthropy and volunteerism to really get everyone to rally around something that's really positive and make them feel good about what was happening in this company. So when we merged, we took stock of what both foundations were doing and took a look at what the volunteer programs were and what the grant programs were, and I think both organizations had some really solid stuff. Figuring out what those great things were and putting in this strategy for the future, it was a difficult part. William Morris had a great volunteer program. Endeavor had a great grant program, and I came from Endeavor. So volunteering was a struggle for us. We had the same people come to everything. It was the same 10 to 20 folks, agents and assistants, who came to every volunteer event. And so that was the challenge, was trying to find that one thing that we could get the entire company to do. And so we followed William Morris's model, which they had a roll up your sleeves day. Patrick Weitzel, our CEO, at a meeting just decided to call it Walk the Walk, so it is now called Walk the Walk. And we have Walk the Walk every October, the third Thursday in October, and we close our doors, and every single employee in the company goes out into the community and volunteers their time, similar to what Lionsgate does. We select like 17 to 20 organizations and place our employees there, and they love it. They don't always love it first thing in the morning, but when they come back, they've felt the impact and they realize, the time that they put in, and there's value in that.
Right. So also in your case, it was a matter of, the good news is that Patrick was very behind it. Ari was behind it.
Completely.
Okay. So, this is interesting because last month at the Milken Conference, Gene Case of the Case Foundation was saying that the number one reason people give is because someone asked them to. And what I'm hearing is that the management level went to the C-suite and asked them, hey, can we do this? And they said, sure. I wanted to ask you, Joanne, from your government experience, is it always this easy?
Wearing my government hat, government is a little difficult to move because it has a slower culture and it's also risk adverse. Because if they do something wrong, it's usually celebrated for months in the newspaper. So it's a little bit more difficult to get them to move. Also, in the procurement process, and I'll give you an example of what I found, because I was director of the State Arts Council and put together a special license plate program. Maybe you've seen it. It's the palm tree and the sun. And it was done by a very famous artist who contributed his talent, Wayne Thiebaud. And then we discovered we needed to market this plate because you had to sell 5,000 in order to get the DMV to print the plates. So I got a PR firm, I got Ford Motor Company to help promote it, and then another PR company, and all of a sudden I heard from state government, you have to put out a procurement and give any organization the chance to bid to do it philanthropically. And it was like an oh my God moment. But you learn to navigate around government, and I think more and more public-private partnerships are the way we're going to have to go. And to be successful, you need to figure out how to work with government, work through government, and work at all levels of government so that they are a good partner.
What makes for a good partner?
I think the very fact that each can use their strength, and probably, again, best are examples. In one particular instance, and this is wearing the California Community Foundation hat, there was a sense that government, because of the cutbacks, didn't have what it took to do a good census. And the census is a very important process where you determine for 10 years via census what kind of government funding you're going to get. So government was in the throes of huge cutbacks. The foundations came together, determined that they could support our census so that those that were undercounted would be appropriately counted, and Los Angeles came through with flying colors, and we're seeing the results now in our social service delivery, that we're getting more federal funds. That was everybody doing what they could do well and working collectively.
And later I can ask you what the right answers are on the census to ensure we get as much funding as possible. That's probably good to know. Just kind of tilt the balance there a little bit. So, in terms of funding, in both Haylen's case and Sarah's case, the funding was available. But funding is one of those things that can be very tricky, not just getting it the first time around, but realizing that it can change. And you had shared with me a story about AVID, the Educational Intervention Program. It's very interesting and just a great model that I think every state has kind of appropriated that model. Can you tell them a little bit about what AVID is and how that kind of changed, and a program that was incredibly successful?
AVID is a successful program, and it's in 47 states and all our military-dependent schools. And it's advancement through individual determination, and it is a very common-sense approach to taking C and D students, giving them advantage, and through determination and a compact with the student's family, has put them in 4-year institutions with a huge persistence to graduation. Well, that was funded within California by the state of California. And in the cutbacks, again, AVID went on the block, and all of a sudden did not receive state funds anymore. And the comment that came from the governor's blue pencil was, this should be determined by individual school districts. So AVID then had to go out and build relationships. They really, because they were a state-funded program and everybody valued what they did, and they had such great outcomes that it was taken for granted, and they then had to go to every school district in a retail way and seek private funds. Well, they are very successful, and there are more teachers attending the AVID training in the summer because it's really a teacher education program that then gives the underpinnings. So you see these kids in middle school learning how to take Cornell notes, something I didn't learn until college. So these kids are put in advancement, the AP classes, and really are taught to succeed on their own. But they had to change their funding model.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because so many organizations face that. Sarah, I wanted to ask you, when it comes to an organization like Lionsgate or William Morris Endeavor that are not only incredibly profitable, but regarded as highly profitable, when you consider ways of going outside the organization, whether it's a foundation or whatnot, have you encountered the scenario where people say, well, you guys are flush. I mean, why do you need money?
We're just now exploring it. We haven't in the past for that reason. It is, I think that there is that perception that why would the WME Foundation ever need to raise money? Don't you guys make millions and millions of dollars? And we do, but we're also, our company, we're not in the business of giving away money. We're in the business of making money. So our foundation sort of is operating as its own, and we have to raise money if we want to continue our programs and expand them. And so, yeah, we've done it internally. We actually did one for Donors Choose. We had all of the teachers at our partner schools sign up for Donors Choose, put their projects on there, and then internally we made a competition, motion picture department versus television versus books, and everyone had to scramble to raise money, and the winner got nothing but bragging rights, but these are amazingly competitive people, so they'll do anything just to win. So we were able to raise $70,000. We funded all of our teachers in Compton, Nashville, and in New York and Brooklyn, and had some money left over. So we were able to go to the teachers and like, sign up for more. We've got it. But we can't always lean on our employees to donate because there's going to be donor fatigue. So right now we're exploring possibly doing an auction. We realize that we do have assets, not our celebrity assets. We want them to use that to raise money for their own charities. But within the organization, it turns out Ari Emanuel is kind of a celebrity in his own right. So, and I haven't asked him this, so this is off the record. But, maybe a 30-minute meeting with Ari, will that help us raise money for the WME Foundation? Use of our screening room to screen a movie, tickets to our Oscar party, Emmy party, things like that turn out to actually be pretty valuable to the general public. And so we're going to try it, and hopefully it helps us raise more money so that we can increase our programs, where our goal is to move into a high school in Compton as well, and it costs money to bring programs into these schools. So,
sure. I know when you did the program with International Medical Corps, right? You teamed with The Impossible, which was an interesting way of leveraging content or a production partner. Are there other things like that you've done, or are there things in the pipeline that are geared toward raising funds for a potential foundation?
We haven't done that, but we do partner with other organizations. Habitat for Humanities is one of them, and they require that you make a donation there because they obviously have to have staff there to wrangle all the employees and to get them to do certain tasks. So one of the things we did, as you mentioned, Sarah, is that we had a Lionsgate poster, a Twilight poster that was signed by all the actors, and that went up for auction and on the internet, and we raised enough money to make that payment to Habitat and get all the employees on site there. So that was one of the ways that we did that. We have looked into a foundation. We're not there yet. It still takes a little bit of convincing, but we are looking into that.
Yeah, and it's interesting how some companies develop foundations in very natural ways where it's not just a matter of a donation. There's actually an article about, is it Jack Ma, the article that I put in here? Yeah, of Alibaba, and how their foundation is beginning with a $3 billion endowment. So it's in pretty good shape.
Jealous.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. You have to realize that they're looking at programs that are going to benefit the public of China. So they have a big audience. That's $3 billion, maybe $1 a person, I think, at that point. So who knows? But it's a nice way to start. And there are companies like Salesforce.com, which have been pretty innovative in their thinking. But Salesforce.com ended up developing a scenario where they sell their software to nonprofits at a discounted rate and use the funds from that. So they're still operating as business, but they're using the funds from that to fund their foundation, which supports the work they do. It enables them to even cover the costs that are incurred from, volunteer days, impact days, et cetera. There are all of these different opportunities and ways to kind of skin a cat.
And I think it's almost better for companies to set up a foundation that they can take greater risks, because if they're publicly traded, they have to they're accountable to their shareholders. So they have to be very careful on the money that they're giving away, unless they just give one lump sum to their foundation and say, we just made one giant contribution, and then the foundation can take all the risks that they want under the law.
Right. Which is, a real luxury to be in that position. When you are trying to navigate something that is, whether it's a government or if you're just advising a nonprofit, what is the best way to approach or position a nonprofit? Are there any, 3 simple rules one might want to keep in mind as they shape that effort?
More and more, I think that you're asking people to be accountable. And so outcomes and data and success is extremely important, especially as you're approaching entrepreneurs. It's a very data-driven society, and many organizations they have anecdotal information, but they don't have the rigor that it takes, especially if you're trying to deal with organizations of scale. And when you go to government or you go to the larger corporations that are multinational or national, they're looking for something of significant scale that often meets their objectives. So I think it's really learning who you're going to go to ask the money and find out where there's a commonality of interest. And the commonality also of volunteerism, because many of the corporations do have a volunteer ethic. And so if you can find that your nonprofit has a simpatico type of mission or relationship or something that can make the employees feel proud of the company that they're with because they support this, I think you stand a greater chance.
I'm sure you can speak to that, Haylen, because you've involved, I think when they had their last Impact Day, it was 2/3 or more of the employee population that participated. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so last year for the first time we closed the company, as Sarah mentioned, and we call it Impact Day. And we go out into the community and we volunteer, and we have a large number of organizations that we partner with. And the CEO, we sat down and we told him that this is what we were thinking of doing, and the initial thought is, well, that's going to cost me a lot of money, with all these individuals not working for the day. Over 400 employees showed up out of 600 total count, so that was a large group. It was amazing. I mean, we had a great day. Everybody came back towards the end of the day, and they talked about where they went and how it impacted them. And another fun statistic is that we have over 50% of our employee base are millennials. So they're all young and they love to volunteer and they love to help. And not everybody's motivated by money. They have something to them that they really want to do these things. And so we found we not only do now Impact Day, but we also do a personal Impact Day where someone can fill out a form and whatever organization that they choose to go to, that they can take the day off and get paid for it anyway.
Which is almost like a volunteer version of directed giving, in effect, where they can serve an organization that they really believe in.
Yes.
That's interesting.
I'm borrowing that idea.
I wanted to ask you, the ability to have people focus on these particular causes and things that are important to them, is there a way that you, do you assess those?
We always do a survey after every event that we have, and we always get feedback. And it's quick, and we take that feedback. This January, we did an employee engagement survey, which we had never done, and we had 64% response, which is pretty large for an initial survey at a company. Yeah. So that was great. And we got a lot of feedback, and we're working on that now. And some of the suggestions that these employees have, we're trying to implement. And it's a huge impact on morale. And we have shirts that say Lion Shares. People wear them on days, and they're very, very proud to be a member of that group.
It's interesting, the effects that some of these volunteer days have on the employees. We've seen it too. I keep talking about the schools, and I should give you some background. WME is partnered with 2 schools in Compton, an elementary and its feeder middle school. We also have an elementary school in Brooklyn and one in Nashville. And our idea is to treat these schools like we would a client. What are your dreams? What are your vision? What's your vision? And how can we help? But also inviting them to come to the table, right? So everything that we do, they've got to meet us 20%. Otherwise, it's not going to sustain, and there's not going to be that ownership. It's just going to be another handout. But anyway, so we've been at these schools now for 5 years, Foster Elementary in particular. And we have a mentor program, so the kids come to our offices. We have a summer camp every Saturday in July. You all are welcome. It's a lot of fun. We have pen pal programs. We have just a number of things to get our employees engaged in the schools and build relationship with the kids and teachers. And what's come out of that is that certain individuals and certain departments have now taken on different parts of the school independently. They just come to us and say, is it okay if we do a fundraiser? We want to build a tennis court. It's like, is it okay? Yeah, absolutely. Go run. Do it. And they're engaging the clients in raising money and going out to the schools, and it's grown far beyond anything that we would have put together or even had the capacity to run. And it's really exciting because they're really gaining something just from donating some time and getting to know these kids and getting to know this environment. So it's pretty exceptional. It shows the power of volunteerism. I mean, you might not think like, I want money. I don't want to volunteer. But what that relationship can turn into money over time.
Joanne, I wanted to ask you, do government endeavors or government-funded activities that are designed to, benefit the public, do they ever have the opportunity to be this kind of incubator?
Well, I worked at the state level of government, so it was a little bit bigger, and they had a community drive or a united fundraising drive, and agencies competed to win the most achievement in terms of volunteer philanthropy. So you did have agencies where every employee participated because they had captains in every division, and it was a big deal. And all the agency secretaries and the governor had to sign all of these certificates for the participants. So they did volunteer. They also were involved in their community. But, you see things on all levels where these are citizens. They're involved in their community and they're participating. But you don't see it or hear about it in a really organized fashion.
How recent was that?
Well, I was in state government 12 years ago, so that was recent. But, you have an example here in Los Angeles of the Summer of Learning program that Mayor Garcetti is doing, and that is really going to involve LAUSD, a lot of the cultural institutions, the chambers of commerce have all of their businesses creating employment or mentor opportunities. So it's going to be tremendous, and a lot of career planning is going to be done, and you have corporations helping the teenagers build their resumes.
And in a way, what's interesting is that on the state level, it can be an incubator in that a program that's successful here can be appropriated by another state. I remember you had an interesting question about human resources.
Yes, I did. Haylen. No, I was interested because we have our own foundation in CSR. I wear 2 hats. I saddle the foundation, but then also saddle CSR and employee engagement. And I was just curious because I know sometimes CSR falls under corporate communications, sometimes it's HR, and I just wanted your perspective and the advantages of doing the philanthropic work from the HR department as opposed to communications or a standalone CSR division.
Yeah, I think it works really well in HR for us because I have access to leadership, right? I can walk into the CEO's office and have that conversation. I also, start with the recruiting process because a lot of individuals are interested in what kind of culture we have and what kind of programs we have. So we start with the employees when we're recruiting, and we talk to them about, the programs, what they can join. And then as they mature into the company, everybody is well aware of these programs. And I think being in HR, we have the contact with the employees on a regular basis. And so they know to come to us and they know what's there and they give us feedback regularly. So I think having it in HR has been very beneficial for us.
This is, I guess, kind of, in the interest of time, this will be our sort of quick-fire session. There was an interesting question you had, Joanne, about celebrity and the influence of celebrity.
Yes, my question is, and this is to both of you, is many nonprofits want a celebrity spokesperson. How do you go about starting a conversation? Where should it start, or how realistic should organizations be?
It's not out of the realm of possibility, but I think it's a lot more difficult than people think. A lot of our, at least in our agency, a lot of our talent is pretty established by the time they've come to us. So they've already identified long ago a cause that they're passionate about or an organization that they want to align themselves with. So that is a challenge. That doesn't mean that they don't want to support, certain one-off initiatives. We have a lot of clients right now doing the Bring Back Our Girls, even though their philanthropic focus might be education or cancer research or whatever it is. But that is the challenge. And there are people like me whose job it is to say, stay focused. Don't go all over the place. If you want to have impact, then you've got to stay focused. But like I was saying earlier, I think it's important for nonprofits to reach out because you just never know. I mean, we take meetings all the time or request information all the time because you never know when that one client's going to walk into the office and say, I really want to give back. Do you know, I had a client once come in and say, like, I want to do something with brain tumors. And so I had no idea which organization works in brain tumors. So I want to have those meetings. I'm totally opening myself up right now. But we want to be informed of what's going on in the community, nationally, locally, domestically, and globally, because our clients are interested. And it might not always be the celebrity. It might not always be the Matt Damon. It could be a screenwriter. And this is probably where you can talk to it. But these influencers and these content creators who can share the story of the work that nonprofits are doing in ways that are really creative and might actually change behavior as opposed to, a celebrity putting out a tweet. So.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I mentioned earlier is where we have done auctions to raise money in order to fund a project that we're doing. And so having a poster signed by all of the actors or, having a premiere ticket, for one of their films, so we've done that, but we have not asked specifically for them to come forward and helping us in the other way. And I think we're still small. We're just starting. We're 2 years old, It's still in the incubator base, and so we're going to get there.
It's great. You can take a page out of Sarah's book. You two can touch base later.
I have some ideas. We should connect after this.
And you also had a question about public-private partnerships.
Yes. This is my own private little session with Joanne.
Yes.
I apologize.
I'm wondering if you're writing a paper on this at USC right now.
No, I'm not.
Or having Joanne do your homework for you. But okay.
Not yet. Hang on, though. With what we're doing with the schools in Compton, we've obviously had a lot of challenges working with the public sector, but also a lot of success. And I actually just kind of want your advice on what private industry could be doing to help facilitate this. We have a tendency to want things done yesterday, and I know bureaucracy doesn't work that way. So I would love any sort of advice that you have for me and for the group.
I think the biggest thing is you're a very entrepreneurial culture. Mm-hmm. And again, to put yourself in their position and understand what they are up against or dealing with, and then keep driving a solution. So don't give up. Sometimes you say, is this worth it? This is just too much of a hassle. This is such a bureaucracy. I'm not going to be able to penetrate. You can't. You may need to go in through a window rather than a door. But you can make the change, and you can build a strong partnership. And an example here is the Annenberg Foundation with their project In Sync, and I don't know how many of you have heard about that, but it has made a huge difference in pulling people together, all segments, so that you can turn in strong grant applications so that you can go after federal funds. And we got a promised neighborhood, and then we got a promised zone. But they even supplied the grant writers. So that's an example of public funds, but the private sector got engaged, and then because it was a challenge grant, they quickly needed money. Well, government doesn't work real quick. So they brought together the foundations so that you could produce the match in the time frame. So there are, but it takes patience, and it takes getting the other person's head to understand what they're dealing with.
Are there any other questions you have for each other, or should I turn this over to the audience? Okay, thank you so much, Haylen, Joanne, and Sarah. Do appreciate it. And thank you for coming this evening.